Hi folks, and thanks for joining us. Those of you who are regular readers of the Mount Evelyn DX report will be aware that every couple of weeks I have a series called Station News and the Logbook. But today I had a little bit of time on my hands, so I thought I'd do a video version of this. Haven't done that before, so thought I'd just see how it goes. So it'll be the same sort of format, except in a visual version. Let me know what you think. So let's get down to some station news. And of course, we have just started the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, and that is a time of fasting between sunrise and sunset for our Muslim brothers and sisters. And it's a very important, spiritually, a very important time for them. So Ramadan this year takes place between June the 6th, so just a couple of days ago, and goes right through till July the 5th. And during this time, you often find that broadcasters in the Islamic world sometimes go on an extended schedule or introduce different services or additional services to their broadcasting schedule. I have here some schedule information that's been made available on the HFCC registrations, and this is for the Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They've got some additional broadcasts operating between the 6th of June and through to the 5th of July. From 1950 to 2250 UTC on 7375 kilohertz in the Azeri language, that's for the Azerbaijani people. From 2200 to 2330 on 5930 kilohertz in Arabic. From 2200 to 2330 also on 7250, also in Arabic. From 2250 to 0050 on 7420 in Azeri again. And from 2320 to 0020, 7410 in Kurdish. And from 0020 to 0120 on 7410 kilohertz again, but this time in Turkish. So I'll have those up on the screen there for you, and you can have a look at those. India. Jose Jacob, VU2JOS, has very kindly sent some information on the regional shortwave stations of All India Radio. And these are the 50 kilowatt stations that have been discontinued just recently, as observed in the A16 printed schedule that comes out from All India Radio. Now, the stations that have been discontinued are Kolkata, Shimla, Imphal, Itanagar and Kohima. Those stations operated in the 60 metre band. Kolkata one was the one I used to listen to quite a lot on 4820 kilohertz. Had a really nice signal much of the year. Those stations have also disappeared from the 49 and the 41 metre band as well. So there's 5 transmitter sites that have now discontinued there, and that comes after probably another 3 or 4 stations discontinued several years ago down there. There's still plenty of stations to listen to from the All India Radio domestic services, the regional services, but they are starting to thin out a little bit. And I guess it's because in some cases the transmitters are starting to get pretty old now, and the engineers are finding that it's sometimes difficult to get replacement parts, and so they don't bother to replace the transmitter. They just let them eventually just go off the air. Now, there's a really good website called DX India that VU2JOS runs, and if you want to know anything about All India Radio on the international services or the shortwave or the medium wave services, there's lots of information there, and I'll put the link down below, and it's www.qsl.net /VU2JOS /, and that's worth having a look at for some more information on the Indian broadcasts. June 21, that's the winter solstice. That's where, if you live in the southern hemisphere, it's the shortest day of the year, and if you live in the Antarctic, there's no day at all, it's just night time. So it's a very long night for them on June 21. And the BBC have a tradition where they have a special broadcast to the Antarctic scientists and researchers that belong to the British Antarctic Survey. And every year, for quite some time now, they've broadcast what has been really wonderful listening. It almost sounds like old-time radio with stories and good wishes from home. And it only lasts half an hour, but it's a lovely program. And I suspect that it gives a lot of joy to the people who are living in the Antarctic there. Now, last year, they had frequencies in the 49 and 31 metre band. And the year before they had actually, they also used a frequency on the 41 metre band as well. We haven't got the schedule yet, but that's something to watch out for. And I'd encourage you to have a listen to that when that information becomes available. Some of you will already have heard that Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe are finishing their Russian language broadcasts on June the 26th. And this sort of came as, I guess, a little bit of a surprise, although Voice of America finished their broadcast in Russian in 2008, so there is a bit of a precedent. But, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty have had a long tradition over many decades of broadcasting to the people in the then Soviet Union and now Russia and the surrounding republics. But the decision has been made by the Broadcasting Board of Governors, which is the US federal agency that looks after all international media. So you'll be able to hear Radio Liberty online, but you can also hear it through a couple of satellites, and also there's one medium wave frequency, medium wave outlet of 1386 kilohertz, which broadcasts at certain times of the day, but which I believe is not very well heard in most of Russia anyway. So for all intents and purposes, Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe are actually going to be shadows of their former selves, very much so. I guess this comes as a bit of a surprise because I would have thought that, particularly with President Putin taking a much more strident, more aggressive stance to both internal politics and foreign policy internationally on the international stage, I would have thought that perhaps it would have been in the interests of the US to continue broadcasts into Russia so that the Russian public get another view of what's going on. But I guess budgets are budgets, and they just don't see the need for it. But as we know as shortwave listeners, the internet is not the most reliable way of distributing information. It can get blocked. So there we go. Now, there's a very good article on called The Masters of Bad Timing, BGG to Eliminate Radio Liberty's Shortwave Broadcasts in Russian. It's quite a long link. I'll put it down below there. And you can link onto that and have a good read. It's really actually quite an excellent article. It gives you an alternative view as to the concerns that some people have about the fact that Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe are not continuing on past June 26. Okay, so here are some Latin American DX notes. 4055 kilohertz, Guatemala, Radio Verdad at Chiquimula. A very weak signal on June the 3rd with classical music playing at 11:35 UTC. That one, although they run only low power, I think it's about 800 watts at the moment, that should get a little stronger as we get into our winter DX season. 4945 kilohertz is Brazil. Now the Brazilians just haven't been very good this year so far. But they hopefully will improve over in the next few weeks. But one that I did hear was Radio Cultura do Amazonas in Manaus. It's a Brazilian pop music program that they were running at the time at 10:18 UTC with quite a fair signal. However, by about 10:30 UTC, they were fading and the signal was getting pretty scrappy, which is normal for Brazilian signals coming into Australia as it's getting more and more daylight over in Brazil. They get well into their morning period, then the signals they get absorbed in the ionosphere, and we don't get them usually much past about 10:30, 10:45 UTC. 5025 is, of course, a long time Latin, and that is Cuba, Radio Rebelde. And that one was fading in quite early at 5:35 UTC. So that's 3:35 p.m. Our time here in the 60 metre band. So that's good. So it fades in nice and early for our winter DX season. But it's on the same frequency as the Australian ABC regional station VL8K, which is in Katherine in Northern Territory. So it's interesting in the wintertime to hear this because you start off hearing Cuba before you hear Australia. And so the Cuban station's coming in around about 0530, and then by about a bit after 0700, you start to hear both stations there, and about 0745, the Australian station really starts to get quite a bit stronger. And then the Australian station signs off at 0830, and Radio Rebelde is left on the frequency for the rest of the evening. So it's really quite interesting to see the propagational changes happen as you'd expect maybe the Australian station to be the strongest station, but that's not always the case. So here's a clip of Radio Rebelde starting off. It gets a little bit scratchy at first, and then it gets a bit stronger, and then you hear the Australian station coming in quite a bit stronger as well, and they're sort of fighting it out together on that frequency around about 0745 UTC. There's a few clips here in this report today. They're all recorded on my iPhone, so it wobbles around a bit, and the sound's not fantastic, but it's the best we can do. So here's 5025 and the two stations that occupy it. Okay, so another station from Cuba, of course, is Radio Havana, and they're operating the external service on 5040, which we really only ever hear in winter here. And it was a nice early fade-in time of 0518 UTC, which is 3:18 p.m, and noted a running parallel with a number of other outlets in the 49 metre band, so 6000 kilohertz, 6060 and 6100 kilohertz were all heard, but 5040 on June the 4th was really running at a very good signal by about 0535, 0540, so that was a good one to catch up with. And then another Brazilian station on 6080 is, of course, Radio Nacional Brasilia in Brasilia, and that started to fade in about 0510 UTC with a music program. Started off as a weak signal at first, but then it actually got quite a bit stronger within about an hour's time. Now, the actual frequency measurement of that I got on that particular day, which was June the 4th, was 6180.02. So it's just a little high up on its registered frequency. But it's putting in a good signal, and it's great to see the station back on the air again because it was off the air for quite some time. Here's a clip of Radio Nacional. there's some other wintertime afternoon DX that we've been hearing here at Mount Evelyn. I'll just go through these fairly quickly. 5085 kilohertz is WTWW in Tennessee, running religious programming at 0540, which is 3:40 p.m. here. So again, one of those stations coming in early on the 60 metres, and really with quite a reasonable signal too. 5975 is Radio Japan via Wolferton in England, noted in English to Europe at 0523 with Japanese pop music programming. They gave the complete schedule at 0529 for all English services and then signed off at 0530. 6155 Austria, the Austrian international service there, very small international service that just runs a German service to Europe, signing on at 0500 with a fair signal on 6155 kilohertz. 7305 Vatican Radio via Greenville in North Carolina was running a Spanish religious service with hymns beamed to Central America at 0215 and eventually signing off at 0229. 7315 WHRI in Cypress Creek, South Carolina. A fair signal at 0220 UTC, which is 12:20 p.m, so lunchtime here. Again, it's really nice to get that sort of wintertime reception on that band. You know, by about spring, those frequencies tend to just disappear, so it's nice to hear them in winter. 9490 kilohertz is Radio Republica at Isidun in France, with Spanish programming at 0233 and a very good signal there from them. Here's a clip of Radio Republica.
Por sus raíles podrán circular 325 trenes al día, de los cuales 270 serán de carga. El fuerte temporal de lluvias que azota gran parte de Francia y sur de Alemania ha tocado la vida de casi...
And 11730 is iRadio, the new service there. iRadio using the transmitters at Isidun again, and that's running a Sudanese dialects at 0450 with a talk and ID and frequency information in Arabic at 0458 before signing off. Has a big signal here at Mount Evelyn, so that should probably be well heard in lots of other places around the world as well. The 22 metre band is a band that quite often people forget about or they're not even aware of, but it is actually a really good band to listen to because the international broadcasters can quite often get their signals out right throughout the day, almost a 24-hour period at certain times of the year. And so some countries make more use of this band than others. China, of course, does, but also India and France also does that as well. So, and Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran is also using this band quite actively. So it's worth having a bit of a look at. Here's some stations that I heard again during the afternoon in the 22 metre band. 13580 is BBC via the Talata relay. This is English World Service to East Africa at 0640. 13725 is Radio France International via the Isidun relay again. Very good signal with their English service to Central Africa at 0625 with commentaries and news. In fact, here's a little clip.
Good morning and welcome to Paris 5 AM, the English language program on Radio France International. It's Sunday the 5th of June on Audio Horton. Coming up later this half hour, we'll hear how a UK vote on leaving the European Union.
And on 13750, RFI again via the Isidun transmitter in the Hausa surface with news to Central Africa at 0633. Again, a good signal. Have a listen to this clip here.
الشنكو وسط رومانيا، وسيشارك 1000 جندي من القوات البرية الرومانية بجانب 150 جنديا من بريطانيا
And finally, on 13765 kilohertz, Vatican radio via the Vatican transmitters, a good signal at 0636 in English to Central Africa.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus journeyed to a city called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd accompanied.
Okay, so we've come to the end of this week's station news and the logbook, the video version. I'm not sure I'll do another one of these. It's taken a lot of work to actually put all this together. So we'll see how it goes. If you've got any feedback on this, love to hear from you. And until then, until next time, 73s and good DX to you all.